Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy.
Danger zone.
Yes, that's right, people. We are doing another spoiler special, and of course we are doing it on Top Gun Maverick, and I am joined by our very own Bob, Boaz Dix. How are you, sir?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you doing, Iceman?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. No Mavericks on this podcast.
No one's cool enough to be a Maverick.
Not yet. So I've seen the first film from 86 countless times. And I've seen Top Gun Maverick now twice. How many times have you seen Top Gun Maverick? Just the once, is that right, Boaz?
Yeah, just the once. And I've never seen the original.
So as kind of a Top Gun newbie, what did you make of this one then?
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was many, many times better than I was expecting it to be.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought it was just incredible. Just the fact that Tom Cruise now is just such an insane actor and producer, quite frankly. I do think he's a better stuntman than an actor now. And I got it wrong on the Tom Cruise podcast that we did, that I said he flew the jet, and he didn't. The Navy wouldn't let him, but a lot of people said that he probably could have done, but the rules and regulations they wasn't allowed.
Yeah. Well, apparently he does own a lot of his own aircraft at his place, like helicopters and planes and stuff. Nothing that goes supersonic. So I think it's a case of, one, it's like the Navy's pride. It's to do with the aircraft, so it's like we're not going to let non-Navy personnel actually ride one of our aircraft. I suppose if Tom Cruise had the time, he'd join the Navy and in a couple of years would be a pilot just to do it for this movie and then fucking quit or something. But yeah, so they said it was just kind of it was the Navy's rules. It's like, listen, nobody but a pilot is actually going to fly these things. So I was watching a thing that they'd have a secret. So it was done real. These are the actual actors. You are seeing them literally fly. But they'd have a hidden pilot somewhere. And so he's the one actually flying.
Yeah, he does fly the P-52, the propelled airplane, which you see right at the start where he's working on it. That's his actual plane. And he does that barrel roll at the end just before the credits with Jennifer Connelly. So he does fly that.
That's pretty amazing.
The practical action was just insanely good for me, and you can really see the G-forces on the actor's face, especially at the end when they're pulling up to 9G to get over that mountain. I was just like, my God, that looks so good. Yeah. And obviously way better than CGI. Yeah. I mean, we've said this many times on the podcast that when we reviewed Midway, there's some kind of emotional separation because you kind of know they're not real in that film. Whereas this, you're right in it because they're real. Then they're up there, even though they're not really flying it. But it's so intense.
Well, I think the thing is, CGI is a great tool, and I think with most films, it's I would actually stretch to say not that it's getting there, it's gotten there. You can make incredibly real, just real looking stuff, but the amount of cost and effort to produce a fake that looks real, you might as well do the real thing. Sometimes it's not possible if you're doing alien invasions and what have you. But this film, I heard, had quite a modest budget. So of I can't remember, 100 to 200 million or something like that. So it's still really large.
Modest? That's still quite a lot. Yeah.
I think it was 100 million or something. Yeah. So that's a lot. But I'm expecting that if they did that all in CGI and tried to get it as realistic as possible, probably cost like 200, 300. Do you know what I mean? It would get ridiculous to do the same scene. And even then, you've got to account for so much that reality just gives you for free. So not only does it look incredible, but them in the cockpit, you're like, it just looks great. You know, you go from them outside of the cockpit to the actual plane, and you're like, man, that looks amazing. That sounds real. And then you go them in the cockpit, and everything's shaking and moving, and they're just like, their eyes are like dialing, and they're trying to say their lines, and you're like, Jesus Christ, this is a lot, you know, and the noise and stuff. So I think to replicate all that is just it would just be way too much, and just do it real. It just looks incredible, and you just realize that a lot of plane scenes in movies, you're like aircraft scenes and fighter scenes and stuff, because you know you've seen them in so much, you know, in like the Transformers movies and army movies and war movies. And I think with this, you're like, my God, they're missing quite a lot. There's so much going on in the aircraft that, again, as I said, reality just gives you for free. So
I think, frankly, half the budget was basically paying for Tom Cruise's insurance bill as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But yeah, they stuck like 6 IMAX quality cameras in the cockpit as well. So they were making like 6 different angles you could get in the cockpit. Mm. There must have been like a 3-seater sometimes when when you could see both actors in the cockpit. I've never seen a Super Hornet like that. I don't know. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
I think overall, even just beyond the like the technical aspects of the you know, the dogfights and what have you, you know, the directing is just good. I think even if you pull away from like, you know, the real, even just like, you know, talking scenes, emotional scenes, all that shit, the directing is really, really fucking good. And the editing is just incredible. Yeah. I don't think that should be shied away. Like, you know, the quality of just like the images and the pictures just looks so rich and vibrant. Even when nothing's going on, you're like, man, this looks really nice, really picturesque, really painting-like. And then, again, just how it's edited, it's just really well done.
Yeah, really intense.
Yeah, it's just really intense. Even if, like, as I said, like nothing much is going on, like the camera and the editing makes it look like, you know, there's a lot of great stuff going on.
Because you could easily make it feel very samey because it's just like a cockpit shot. That's it. But the fact that there's all varying different angles, it makes it really good.
Yeah, there's a huge variety. You know, huge variety of shots. Interiors, exteriors, you know, the jet engines, the dials, and it's all done like exactly where it needs to be. So when I'm thinking of like a really good intro to that sort of directing was his first usage of the stealth plane, and you know they tell him not to get in it, and he gets in it.
Yeah, Dark Star. Yeah.
And just how it's done, of like going from ground control to back to him to, you know, especially that tense bit where he's trying to push it at 10. And you're like, his face, and then it's like, please 10, and then the afterburners, and then the dial, and then the ground control. It's like, no, you can't do it. To the dial, to his face, and it's just done really, really well. And then when you get to 10, you're like, okay, it's finished. And the camera chills out, it's on him. And then the camera's on him, and he's like, just a little more. And then it builds up that sort of tense series of cuts again. So it's just really, really well edited. I think that even goes for non-action scenes. Like I even think the scene in the bar where he recognizes Rooster and stuff, and you have that bang, that's really well edited. And I also love when he crash lands after the thing, and how that's edited. It's like he's like a fucking space alien, and it's just done really it's done really and especially because there's so frequent cuts that when you just do like a far back shot and you just kind of let all the action go, you're like it just feels different, and it gets off that different sort of more surreal sort of comedy vibe. But it is really well directed.
Yeah, I love that joke, actually, when he comes back down. Because obviously he ejects before the Dark Star blows up. And he goes into this bar and says, "Where am I?" And the kid just goes, "Earth."
Yeah, that was great.
We were in a full cinema, which is like so refreshing these days. And that got a massive laugh. That was really satisfying, actually. But yeah, this is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who did Oblivion with Tom Cruise before, and they were always kind of like talking back and forth about maybe doing a Top Gun sequel. But Tom Cruise is very adamant that we're only going to do it on lots of conditions, that the technology is there, that we're allowed to actually go up on, you know, in these fighters. And obviously the whole cast did this really intense training course that Tom Cruise designed himself as well with the Navy. There's one like called the Dunk where they're on this like, you know, a cockpit chair on like on a rail. So then they literally just turn the thing and they get dunked into the water and they have to get out. You know, it's just like Jesus Christ. And there's a bit of the training where, you know, that scene in Fallout where the bad guy's in the truck and they're trying to get him out. And it gets pushed into the river, and the water like goes horizontal. Yeah. That's basically what they had to do, but get out.
That's great.
I was just like, Jesus Christ, I'm not sure I could do that. But with Joseph Kosinski, I feel like this film, he is a bit of a puppet director for Tom Cruise, because you look at a lot of what Tom Cruise is saying in the behind the scenes stuff in interviews. He feels very in control of everything, like the editing and the camera stuff. And it's like he had to teach the actors cinematography, lighting, and all that stuff, editing, because they had to literally turn the cameras on.
Shouldn't the director be like, Tom, fuck off a bit. You're kind of stepping on my toes here. You're in my role.
Yeah, but that's what it kind of feels like. A bit like, you know, George Lucas with, you know, Empire Strikes Back and Ivan Kuchner or whatever his name is. Everyone's like, yeah, George kind of was really the director on the, you know, the last two sequels of the original trilogy. Yeah. I mean, Tom Cruise has always been like, yeah, I never really want to be a director. But you are really, you know? You're so heavily involved in everything.
Exactly, you might as well be.
I think one thing I really loved about this film is that they kind of work in like the G-force stuff. That it's going to be a real challenge for the pilots in this film. He never really got that in the first film. And I feel like you really feel the influence of Chris McQuarrie as well in the script here, who's worked with Tom Cruise for many years. Because the film sets out about half an hour in that this is what the pilots have to do at the end. So the script is building and building and building until the final mission. So you just get that real sense of momentum and crescendo throughout the film. And I do feel like Chris McQuarrie is a big part of that. Because you don't really have that in the first film. The first film is basically like, who is going to be Top Gun? Who's going to win the competition? And then they just have like a final mission against the Russians or whatever. It's never really a build-up. They're like, oh, all of a sudden there's a mission and they got to go, you know. So I just like how the script feels very whole in that sense.
Yeah, it's got like a definite end goal and payoff, you know. Especially like towards the end where, you know, you've seen them train this circuit many times. Because I think that's a thing that could have... Well, obviously, if you know what you're doing, it won't fall flat. And obviously, it's like almost scriptwriter 101. But they're training for the mission, and there are these specific parameters. They have to be very, very low to the ground through this canyon because of SAM sites. They have to travel very fast across this winding pattern of the interiors of mountains and not crash. Then they have to, go over this mountain and dive immediately. So they can't they got to stick close to the ground and dive immediately.
Yeah, they have to invert the plane and then go over.
Yeah, spin it around. Yeah, spin the aircraft around and dive. And then they've got to laser target the,
uranium thing.
Uranium entrance, yeah. Blow that up, and they only have one shot at that. And then the other aircraft team behind them has to fire the rocket into the thing. And then the escape is like, I don't know how we're going to escape, but they've got to go up this much steeper mountain, hit 10 Gs, not pass out, which most of them do in the training, and then kind of avoid the SAM sites and then go home.
And that's the easy part. That's the thing.
That was the easy part, yeah.
That's what I love about this script, is that they describe this as being really fucking difficult, but yeah, that's the easy part. Then they got to fight the fifth generation fighters, the Su-57, which they never call it that, which is kind of interesting. Just fifth generation fighters. I just love that whole storytelling device is just, and that's not even the hard part.
Yeah, and they weren't kidding. Like, I really love the last section where the team gets basically intercepted by the next generation fighters, and man, that just gets really crazy. There's just so much going on, but again, it's done in such a way where you can see what's going on. So I think that's a superior way of directing action, just in general, whether it's, you know, physical action between two human beings, like a fight scene or an aerial dogfight. I think too many directors, and I think we've said this before with some of our analysis of movies, where it's a horrible criticism where there are some guys who are in the action field, action directors, who, in my opinion, cannot direct action. It's like you watch an action scene and you're so confused as to what
everyone can.
Yeah, but you're so confused.
Sorry, I had a bit of a cough there.
Gesundheit. But there's, yeah. Anyway, yeah, don't force it out too much, man. So, but yeah, I think many directors cannot direct action, and I think it's good. Not only is this a practical marvel, but the guy can direct action, and you're like, I understand what's going on. Because I know that seems like such a simple criticism, but there are too many directors that don't get this. Do not show me a scene where I have no like, there is action, there's fighting, but I have no fucking idea who is where and what is doing what. Like, I'm so confused. I think with this, there's a lot going on in the dogfights, but I know where everybody is. I know where they are in relation to each other. I know what's going on. And I think they did a good job because, that dogfight, my God, there was just so much awesome stuff going on.
I love that shot, that opening shot of the 4 Hornets, F-18 Hornets coming through the valley, and you can see all the condensation coming off the trails of the wings. You know, that's just a gorgeous long shot, and then it goes to a wide, and they go through under the bridge. Yeah. 2 bridges. I was like, oh my God, I could literally frame that and put it on my wall.
Some really great shots.
So gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Yes, they were fighting against like the Su-57s. They were fully CGI though. Did you notice that?
I have to check, but yeah, probably.
Yeah, and there is a few shots. I mean, Rooster and Maverick end up in the F-14.
Yeah.
When I was watching it for the first time, I'm like, there is no way they are flying that. I'm like, really? That's a really old aircraft. Yeah. Like, the US Navy don't fly them anymore. And then watching it for the second time for the podcast, you can notice that the wings are exactly the same as the F-18. So they were actually flying the F-18 during those scenes for the F-14. Yeah. So they kind of stuck on the ejector handles on the cockpit.
Yeah, on the top. I think wasn't the point of putting the F-14 is it's kind of like a wink and a nod to those that watched the first one. It's like, hey, it's a
that's the jet they used in the first film. Yeah,
it's a jet. He used the first one, and like he's beating the newer generation in this old bucket of crap or whatever.
Yeah. Because in that one, it's got kind of like 2 wings. So the wings kind of, as you see in the film, they they come out and they can be swept back. Because in those days, jets were proper fast.
What are the chances that the enemy has that particular plane of his? Maybe they're just really big Tom Cruise fans. They were like, we keep the F-14 right here.
But isn't that quite common practice, though, that Eastern European countries buy off older US military equipment?
Usually, like, they buy like old Russian stuff. That seems to be like a habit of Eastern European and Middle Eastern countries to buy off really old Russian stuff, like, you know, because I suppose the Americans wouldn't give them that. But it's never directly stated. Because this is an interesting thing that you know, I've been watching some other reviews on. Is I thought they stated which country they were against, and apparently they don't. You know, so I don't know.
They just call them the enemy, don't they?
They just call it the enemy, and I kind of get that. And I think I heard. I also watched a thing where in the first Top Gun, they also didn't specify who the enemy was. It's like, it probably was either Russia or China, but they don't want to like step on anybody's toes and say whatever.
But people who know aviation, it's Russian because it's an Su-57.
Yeah, but apparently I was actually watching a review of Top Gun, and the MiGs that they say they use a MiG, whatever, I can't remember what they said it was, but they said that doesn't exist. They had a military guy go over it, and he said that aircraft just doesn't exist. Like, it's a MiG, which is Russian-made, but the number on it is just not a thing. So, you know, there is plausible deniability in the first one, you know, but it's almost likely Russian because they're using MiGs. Although there are a lot of countries that use Russian equipment, as I said. So, so I think you can have that deniability. With this country, they use a lot of like modern Western equipment. But it's like, but then they talk about a uranium enrichment facility, and I was immediately thinking Iran. Like, it's got to be Iran. Like,
but then it's snowy.
Yeah, but it's snowy. It's snowy, man. It looks like the Alps. So it's like he got them using Western equipment. Politically, it sounds like it's Iran. But geographically, it looks like it's in Central Europe. So where the fuck is this place? I've got no idea. Yeah. I think they did that intentionally to make it as vague as possible so nobody gets pissed off.
I think the real location was Washington State, the mountains in America.
Yeah. So. Maybe it's in America. Maybe the enemy is in the America. You know, it's an American state that broke away or something.
So, you know, with the F-14... I think some of the shots are fully CGI. Some of them are very real, I think. But certainly the cockpit shots, they're actually in an F-18.
Yeah.
I found one of the most intense scenes was actually when Cougar passes out because of the G-force. And that actually works really well because, you know, with the G-force shots, like, you can really see it on their faces pulling at their face. But yeah, that was really intense where Maverick has to go after him to get like tone lock to wake him up. And then when he wakes him up, he pulls up really sharply and then you seem like everything's fine. And then Phoenix and Bob's F-18 gets hit by birds and then the engine cuts out and they're trying to... It just goes so quick. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like going straight down to a mountain and they... You don't see the eject... thing, but well, one of them does eject, I think. Yeah, but that was just super intense.
Yeah, you don't see the parachute though, so it's like you see him hit the ejector button. You don't see the lady in the front hit her ejector seat, and then like it's a very somber scene with Rooster sort of head in his hands and in a very dark, dim lit room with Maverick coming to him. And at that point, you think, yeah, he's going to tell them they're dead, and it's not his fault. But it's like, no, they're fine. No. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, really, really well paced scene, definitely.
Yeah, when you're talking about editing, I think that was definitely one of the best edited scenes, like to create that intensity.
Yeah, no, especially, definitely, because you go from as you were saying, and I also think, you know, when you go to him blacking out, there's enough foreshadowing for it where it feels good. So not only do I think it's really great that you have like the look on his face and he starts to pass out, but it's already been established about 9Gs is kind of where they start to black out. You have a previous scene where one of them is going about 9Gs and like it's fucking you get a first person shot and like just everything starts to like blur and sort of the screen sort of recedes in on itself, like it's getting it's like a first person of them trying to black out and he doesn't black out, so you're like okay, so I've seen this before, so there's setup. Then when he does it, it's like 9Gs on the counter. You know, the camera's looking at the counter, looking at his face. He's like looking at his first person as it's starting to recede. And you're like, yeah, we've been here before. Or it's probably not going to recede. But then it's like it gets to 10 and it just fully goes black. He's out cold. And it's just, and then he just falls.
POV shot,
so I just think it really does a good job of setting that up. You know that they've been close to this point and they've been fine. And it's been edited like this, and they've been fine. But this one it goes beyond that point, and you're like, oh shit, he's going to die. And then I think you're right; it's done really well how they try to wake him up. So frenetic and just a lot going on. Then when he wakes him up, it calms down, and then out of nowhere you got like, birds, and then you get another scene where it's like, oh Jesus Christ. So I think that's always a good thing. I think we said this on like, if you want to create suspense and horror. Do you remember when we compared? Guillermo del Toro's usage of suspense to whoever the hell made Resident Evil. And I was saying, like, you want to kind of get people to the brink and then ease them off and then just push them past the brink. And I think that's the best way to make suspense. And that's a classic example of what they did here, where you're like, oh shit, it really does scare you because you're like, oh, I've taken a breather. Oh my God, And so that seems very memorable.
It's interesting as well if you've watched the first film, because that is the moment, that's the scene where Goose dies. So their engine cuts out because Goose is Maverick's co-pilot. When they eject, because they're in a flat spin and they can't get out of it, they eject, but Goose gets stuck in the cockpit fuselage. So he dies. So when you're watching this scene in this film, you're like, holy shit, one of them's going to die. Oh my God. So it's super intense in that respect as well, if you've seen the first one.
Oh, because it's a callback, yeah. Fair enough.
It's very structurally similar, but as I said before, because you've got this, it's very established that there's this end goal that kind of makes the difference in this film.
No, so more like tightly focused plot rather than like several plots.
Especially like at the end when obviously Maverick gets shot down and he's wakes up in the snow and that amazing looking helicopter tries to shoot at him.
Yeah, that thing looks like a beast.
I didn't think he was going to die at that point, but then when they've basically run out of options against the Su-57 and they're pulling up and they're just about to, fire a rocket, I was like, holy shit. I'm like, are they going to die? Oh my God. And then Glenn Powell comes, Hangman.
Yeah. I think one of the things is like, it would make, even though, you put on your big boy brain, he's not going to die.
Yeah.
I think it kind of makes sense in those parts that, because if you think about it, like, none of the good guys die. And that could be like not satisfying because you're like, well, somebody has to like bite the bullet. I think somebody should have, but I think it's fine that nobody did. And when it comes to that point, I know Tom's not going to die, but it feels like he could have died
because you've had the one before that in the snow.
Yeah. And it's like he's done everything he needs to do. You already have established he's like an old workhorse. After this, he's going to be fired. This was basically his life. You've got, he wants to do right by Rooster. They had some words beforehand, and he saved him by getting into... So you feel like he's kind of done what he needs to do, really. So you feel like, he could die, and to be honest, his story would be complete. So I don't think if he died, it would have been like unwarranted or like bad screenwriting. I think you've finished his arc before that point, so he could die. And so I think it makes it feel like you're like, oh shit, do you know what? He could die. He's done everything he needs to do. I guess he could literally die right now. And then I guess you can say the same with Rooster, where he saves Tom, and then on their mission together, he fully forgives him, and then you think, do you know what? They could both die right now. They've kind of both finished their arcs. But they don't. But this is where I'm saying where the actual threat is does feel real, does feel genuine. Because you're like, their arcs are completed. If you had the balls, you could literally kill them right now.
But Tom Cruise was having none of it.
Absolutely not.
I'm not dying in my way. But Glenn Powell as Hangman, I thought was awesome in this film. Like, super cocky. He's basically Maverick in this film, like Tom Cruise is obviously Maverick in the first one, and he kind of plays really well with Rooster. Their dynamic basically plays out like Iceman and Maverick in the first film, Rooster as Iceman in this case. So I thought those two were really, really good together, Miles Teller and Glenn Powell. Did you like those guys?
Yeah, no, definitely.
He brings an amazing cockiness, doesn't he, Glenn?
Yeah, he does.
Like shooting Paul without looking. He just takes the cue from Bob and just like, I'm awesome.
Yeah, because what's his his catchphrase? Like, where people are going, are you good? Like, are you all right? Are you good? He's like, yes, I am. Or something like that. Yeah, I'm good. Very good. Or something like that.
And he's like, I love this song.
Yeah.
It's like the song is I'm awesome or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, that was funny. And is kind of channeling a younger Maverick.
Yeah, I love Bulb in this film, played by Lewis Pullman, which I think is Bill Pullman's son. He was quite funny. I love the joke about his call sign. Like Phoenix says, hey, what's your name, Bob? What's your call sign, Bob? Bob. I quite like that joke.
Yeah, that's funny.
I actually really like the scene when Maverick steals an F-18 to demonstrate that this mission can be done. It's really thrilling, like going through the mountains. It's funny watching Tom Cruise in the back seat because he's kind of like bouncing around in the cockpit, but then the reverse angles of the back of the helmet of the real pilot is like looking really smooth, and it's like, this is no big deal. Whereas Tom was like, oh my God, really wrestling with the aircraft, even though he's not even flying it. But I know I was very much looking for that, like looking for the details. But
I got to rewatch that.
That was noticeable. But that was quite amusing, actually.
Also, have you noticed that Tom Cruise seems shorter than most of his other movies here? Like, I think that's his real height. It makes me think, in Mission Impossible, does he wear like platform shoes or something?
Probably, yeah.
Because it's kind of funny where he's doing like face-offs against, John Hamm or against Rooster, and they're like here. He's like, like facing off.
Yeah. You're like, oh, sorry, dude, your insurance bill is too high for the budget. We can't afford a box.
Yeah, we can't afford those high heels, Tom. Sorry, man.
What do you reckon of Jennifer Connelly in this film as Penny, like the love interest storyline? Does that entirely work for you?
I think it was one of those things. I thought it was all right. It's not like it was all right. It was an all right love interest, love story thing. I thought that they had history before, so I don't know if I was missing out on anything like that.
No.
Yeah, but apparently not.
She's not in the first film.
So I mean that's kind of confusing, I suppose, because it doesn't really establish how they know each other. I guess they must have known each other before, because it doesn't seem like he's just met her.
Because obviously Kelly McGinnis is in the first film as the love interest, and she's kind of one of the instructors in the first film. But she has not aged well, to put it politely, I guess.
Oh, that's a shame. Well, I mean, I think she's aged normally. Like Tom Cruise is aged abnormally. He just doesn't age.
Yeah. That was probably unfair.
If you're gonna match him up with anybody that he was in a relationship with in a film like 35 years ago or something, it's just not going to. Nobody just doesn't age like Tom Cruise. You're gonna have to find somebody a few years younger.
I found it funny with Mark Commode's review of the film, which I watched yesterday. He was like, "Yeah, Tom Cruise looks exactly the same. It's weird and scary."
I don't know what the hell he's doing. What sort of Faustian bargain he's made with the devil or Xenu or I don't know, L. Ron Hubbard. I don't know what the fuck has happened that he just does not age. Do you think after, like, he's a kind of Winter Soldier, and after every movie they freeze him and then unfreeze him for the next movie and then freeze him and then unfreeze? Because there's no possible way I can explain. Yeah. And if anything, he gets more physical with each movie. You're like, Jesus Christ, you are seriously a superhuman. I'm going to join the Church of Scientology if I could be as healthy as him. Age of 16.
I guess Jennifer Connelly's character as Penny, her character is a little thin. All the bar scenes where she's ringing the bell and the other guys like drag Tom Cruise out. I guess that was fun.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I can say it's fun and it's an okay romance, but I can't like laud it too much because it really doesn't feel developed enough. Where I'm just like, I kind of forget that she exists towards the end. So I mean, that's never a good sign. If I'm like, if he died, he'd be this girl would be waiting for him and stuff, and how that I just forget she's a thing afterwards. So I think that's kind of a testament that it didn't really. Yeah, it isn't like a really good romance where it sticks in my head even when she's not there. I just kind of forget that she exists as a character until she shows up. Well, oh shit, he was dating her.
Yeah, I guess they don't really have a sex scene either. It's just a few shots, but I thought it was quite maturely done.
Yeah. I'm one of those. I do like Netflix movies when I watch them, and I think the thing is, in the modern day, the bar is set. Like, no shame. You can show anything. You can show a head exploding. You can show whatever. Because you don't have to worry about what the big wigs are going to censor in your movie on the screen. I've just kind of had enough of, I like traditional cinema where it just, if you have a sex scene, you can just imply it, or you can do some kisses. I think in too many Netflix things, it's just hardcore pornography. You're like, here's the sex scene. Just, I don't need to see that to know that Tom had sex with this woman. I can use my imagination. Jesus Christ. Yeah, sorry, that's just like a random rant about Netflix, but I'm tired of their sex scenes. Jesus.
Okay.
Just tone it the fuck down. I actually love that scene where after he's like, slept with her and stuff and they're chilling, which was adorable. And that her daughter has come home and then she gets him to sneak out like he's some sort of fucking teenager. And and he jumps out of the window, and then as he lands, he gets up, and she's right there at the door.
That got a big laugh in our screening.
That got a really big laugh. Yeah. I would think the only thing I would do better I would have her say a funny line to like make that even funnier.
Yeah, because she says something really serious, and she like, "Don't do that to my mum again" or something.
Yeah, she says something very serious. It's like don't break my mother's heart, and then walks away. And I'm like, oh man, you've just killed the momentum of how funny that fucking scene is. Like, that's really funny. Yeah. He drops down and She's there. They needed to think of, I think, a better line to keep it funny. That's what I would have done, because that was a really funny scene.
Yeah, it was a really nice surprise to see Val Kilmer in this film, because obviously it's widely known Val Kilmer can't talk because he's got throat cancer now, sadly. But Tom Cruise was adamant that, like, I'm not doing this film without Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is going to be in this film. So it was just a really nice surprise. And I think they handled that scene with him really well. And I think you could easily get that very wrong with him, just typing on the screen. Again, like, we're talking about the editing of the really intense scenes, but I think the editing in this scene was actually really well done as well. And it's interesting when Val Kilmer does speak, that's like an AI thing of Val Kilmer talking somehow. I don't know, but he's not saying anything in real life on set there. So
could have fooled me. I thought he was like squeezing out some words. Definitely sounds like him, but like, just really kind of pushing beyond his. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, I wasn't I mean, I've seen the first film quite a lot, and when he does die, I wasn't that upset. It was more like the latter scenes where Maverick and Rooster are together, and when you think they're going to die, that was more emotional for me than Val Kilmer's death, personally. And the fact that when they all reunite at the end, that was kind of just really emotional, just like, yeah, they did it, a joyous feeling there. I mean, did you like that Val Kilmer scene?
Yeah. I thought it was also a surprise that he was going to be in it. I thought he was just going to be relegated to a sort of, because he mainly just texts. He's like his conscience, who kind of keeps texting him. And so they'll just text together. It's like, I can't do this. And, yes, you can and stuff. But whatever, I'm having problems with Rooster. You can teach him, And I thought that was just going to be it. But he's like, I need to see you now. And you see Val Kilmer and you're like, oh my God.
I thought Monica Barbaro was really good as Phoenix in this as well. She's the only female pilot, which is kind of nice to see.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just not all men. Obviously, like the first film, it's all blokes. Yeah. So. But I think she holds her own, frankly. John Hamm, I thought, was a really good bad guy and really, really quite evil at times. Like when he kind of like takes over the training or whatever from Maverick at a point in the film, and he's like, we need to make sure this mission can be done, and we need to protect the planes, and he doesn't, and then Maverick literally has to intervene and the pilots to make sure they come home, and he doesn't really say anything after that. I'm just like, you little prick. Fucking selfish twat.
Yeah, he was a massive dick. I do like a lot of their back and forths throughout the movie.
But John Hamm is so good at that sort of thing.
100%.
Like I remember in Baby Driver, he's brilliant as the villain in that.
Yeah, no, definitely. He does have this. He's got a very intimidating quality as soon as you see him. I love that scene as well. Like he comes in there, and John Hamm's got this kind of smirk on his face, like smugness. And you think, is that because he's happy to see him? Or he's just a smug little bastard. And you get your answer because he's like Maverick, and he's like, your reputation precedes you. And he's like, oh, thanks. He's like, that it wasn't a compliment. It's just face. That wasn't a compliment. You're not very well liked, sort of thing. And their standoff is very tense. But he makes it very clear he doesn't like him. He doesn't want him here. He's only here because Iceman wants him here. But otherwise, John wouldn't have any other. Ham wouldn't have any other. And he does kick him out as soon as Iceman's dead. And I love their, when basically him and Rooster had that sort of game of chicken and went like really, really low.
Oh, yeah. Like spiraling down.
Yeah, they were spiraling down on this kind of game of chicken. Yeah, way below the hard deck. I think they said the hard deck is 5,000 meters, and they went like below 1,000 or something. They went really, really low. And John Hamm's just chewing them out. Like, how dare you? You know what I mean? It's like, that's the law. That's the rules. He goes, I want everything in full writing, what you're going to do before you do it. Yeah? And you don't run anything by me. You give me a full report. And, so he's chewed him about the hard deck. It'll never go beyond below 5,000. He's like, chewed him out. If he needs to make any changes, it has to go through John Hamm. And he's like, Maverick gives John a report. And he goes, what's that? It's a report about lowering the hard deck or something. I just love that. I love that you don't get the reaction scene because he probably went fucking mental.
Yeah. Probably not Kylo Ren.
Yeah, John Hamm just pulls out a fucking lightsaber. A ham-coloured lightsaber.
Yeah. I love actually the introduction to all the aerial fight stuff, because it's the moment where Maverick is just showing how much of a badass he is, and just like flying through in between like the two pilots, and they go crazy. And yeah, as you said, you have the diving scene. But it's just kind of a cool way of just making making Maverick look awesome compared to all the others, and they all have to do push-ups because they all died in the training exercise.
Oh, I was going to say, I really like the scene. It's kind of unrelated, but where during the dogfight, because that got a laugh as well in the cinema, where he's got a lock on the enemy aircraft. He's managed to outmaneuver it. He's behind it. He's got a lock on it. Can't move. Presses his rocket. And it does this bloody like handbrake glide turn thing. Like it's like it does like this drift. It's like a drifting car, but in the sky. It's like like that. And I just love how he's like, "What the fuck?" Very loud. I got
Apparently that is possible. Apparently,
that got a really loud laugh. Well, that was really well done because it was very tense.
Yeah, I love the bit as well from Monica, who plays Phoenix, when Maverick takes out is about to take out Hangman or whatever, and Hangman is requesting help from Phoenix, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm dead, dude. I can't. I've been shot down already. Sorry."
Yeah, that's funny.
Right, I think we'll leave it there, people. Thank you very much for downloading and listening for our Top Gun Maverick spoiler special.
But the real Top Gun is the friends we made along the way.
Aye, it is indeed. What did I call you at the beginning?
I can't remember. I think you called me Bob.
There you go. Yeah, bye, Bob.
Bye, Iceman.
Yeah. Bye. That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.